The preseason is come and gone for the Kansas City Chiefs, as now they have to make it to the 53-man roster. Once we make it to Tuesday, we will be diving into key positional value groups, and today we will be looking into the quarterbacks. But before we dive into that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video, as I'm going to keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related that you do not want to miss out on. And without further ado, let's have some fun with these quarterbacks. Now, who would have thought under the Patrick Mahomes era that we would have quarterback controversies diving into making the 53-man roster, as Kansas City has kind of, let's just say, a small dilemma on who's going to be their QB2 moving forward in Chad Henne or Shane Buechele. Now, a lot of people may not think, and also in the Chiefs organization, that is this really a controversy? Is there really going to be a reseeding of a quarterback too? Did Chad Henne really lose that position? Maybe not. But what can make it more interesting is Kansas City might be put in a position now where they will have to move forward with 3 quarterbacks on the roster because of how well Shane Buechele has performed and how he will be sought after by a lot of teams. And Andy Reid doesn't typically do this moving forward into the regular season or throughout the season either. Now, he had to last year because Shane Buechele was being sought out by teams, and Arizona Cardinals made a play for him, and Andy Reid's like, yeah, that's not happening. So he called his number and he was off the practice squad, and late in the season, I forgot what week it was, he made the active roster. Let's dive into who I think, not who I think, but how they suit the team, and if they deserve to be QB2 or QB3, or if Kansas City just runs with 2 QBs. And of course, we're going to start with Chad Henne, and honestly, it's not the sexy pick because Kansas City Chiefs backup quarterback is never the sexy position. If you look at Andy Reid's tenure throughout KC, what makes it hard for me to what's the word I'm looking for, because it isn't realize, but, well, you guys know where I'm going to go with this. It's not realized, but it's more of like how Buechele will be valued as a QB2 over Henne is the veteran leadership that Henne brings. And we haven't seen a young guy as a backup QB for Kansas City in the Andy Reid era. We've had guys like Nick Foles, Matt Moore, guys like that where it's like they are career backups. They didn't really have a great career in the NFL, but Andy Reid made sure that, hey, you are backup quarterback material. Chase Daniels, like no one who was really that good as a starting quarterback or had starting quarterback potential, but you're an older guy, you had veteran presence, and you can come in for a game or two and win a drive. And my pushback has always been with this, God forbid, like a Mahomes injury or an Alex Smith injury would happen to where they're out for the year. I don't think any one of those guys can sustain a season-long way to win into the playoffs and a championship. We've seen now the highs of Henne in this offense where, hey, he filled in for Mahomes in a playoff game against the Browns, and he was able to take us to that next game. Or the same with like a Daniel or a Matt Moore, where they had to fill in for 2 games and they were successful. Here's where you can make a pitch for Buechele is he's got the higher upside. Now, I don't think Buechele's the perfect backup quarterback, or do I think he deserves to be Kansas City Chiefs backup quarterback. Now, I do think he deserves to be on this active roster, which makes me sound like, hey, Kansas City is going to run with 3 quarterbacks. And I think it's just because of how highly sought after Buechele is going to be too, but it's also how Andy Reid is going to view this too, because you tend to not want your backup quarterback to play. God forbid injury or anything like that. I know it's something you do not want to see happen. And it's going to be, well, do we really want to hold back Buechele's career? Because, for example, there's teams out there on the bottom half of the tier in the NFL where they might play Buechele. No one's going to view him as a starter right away, but if injuries happen, he's going to play throughout the season. For example, when Kyler Murray gets hurt, Colt McCoy tends to play, or then when McCoy hurts, someone else plays. Buechele would be in a prime position to be a starter in this league. But the reason I think he hasn't really proved much to be a QB2 is because the inconsistencies throughout the preseason. Now, people will look at last week and be like, it was very promising. And yeah, it was, but I don't think the stat sheet shows at all with Buechele, because even though he looked very good, he started the game out and ended the series 7 of 10, I think overall 11 of 17. and had a few incompletions down the road, but some of those were very, very scary passes that should have been intercepted but weren't. And you could tell he still got room to grow and improve. And I know there's no better system than to learn from Andy Reid and to be behind Patrick Mahomes. So I get that pitch too, but it's just like, is he really better than Henne at this point to say if he had to come in a game, would he actually give the Chiefs the best chance to win and continue a playoff stretch? And that I'm not sure of, because I know a lot of people didn't like the way Henne looked last week, but I don't know. I thought it was game manager-esque, which is what Andy Reid asked a lot from his QBs if they're going to come in as a backup position. Now, the only drive he was in, he led him to a field goal, but I don't know. He was throwing some pretty good passes. He threw that nice long pass to Sky Moore that drew the PI, which, like I mentioned, should have been completed, but it was a very nice ball too. He had a nice touch to it, and if he can sustain drives like that, I just don't know the longevity of these kind of drives, or when teams have to have time to game plan for Chad Henne. If that changes a lot of things up for the Chiefs, is where I could kind of push for Buechele now, because Buechele, when things break down, we've seen he's very good with his legs. And one thing we haven't seen, and we won't see unless the injury happens, is see him behind this first-string O-line with these first-string weapons. Maybe it elevates his talents up to a whole nother level. And that I totally believe as well, is he might be not a different player, but his skill set might be close to perfected with guys like Juju, Sky Moore, MVS, McCole Hardman out there, and then a good running back group with a top 5 O-line blocking for him. I could see that as well too, because we've seen a lot throughout this preseason of him running for his life, which is good and bad to see, because when the play breaks down, it's like, are you going to be a standing duck back there when you can't find your guy and take a sack, force the throw, or things break down and you run and find the first down? And that's what Buechele is. He is very athletic with his legs. So it's interesting to see. It's going to be a hard decision. If I was to say, I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas City just says, hey, now's your time to go find another place, because we're way too talented right now, and we don't know if we can move forward with 3 quarterbacks, and we'll take that chance. And if someone doesn't pull you, we'll bring you back into the practice squad, and we'll take our chances with that. But I just don't know, because I think we just don't see it. Like, Andy Reid is very trustworthy with a lot of his people, whether it be in the coaching staff or even in the player organization as well. I think it's going to be hard for him to move on from Chad Henne. So I know there's going to be hard discussions moving until Tuesday to be like, we might really want to keep 3 quarterbacks, because I don't know if I want to move away from Buechele. He shows a lot of talent. But at the end of the day, it's like, I know he shows talent, but what's it worth for the Kansas City Chiefs? You got to look at that too. What is Buechele's talent worth for the Kansas City Chiefs? You could keep him a couple more years and he could keep progressing, and then you can basically elevate him enough to get trade capital out of him, which is what I think Andy Reid would have loved to make out of that. But as long as Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback, he's never going to be a starter in this league. So it's like, why are you really holding on to him? And I think that's why Andy Reid really likes to view these older veteran guys as backup material, because he knows at the end of the day, they're not going to be much more than a veteran present backup that can manage a win. But with that, Chiefs Kingdom, let me know in the comments down below, who would you prefer as Kansas City Chiefs QB number 2? Chad Henne or Shane Buechele? I would like for him to find a way to keep both, or I would like for him to, that would be very amazing to see them basically pull the string and go Buechele. I just think it's highly unlikely. That's why I think this might be the year Kansas City Chiefs roll with 3 QBs. But let's discuss about it in the comments. Let's have fun with it. With that, I'm going to check out. Y'all take care.